The Galactic Peace Summit had been advertised as the dawn of a new era, which, to General Alara Miles, felt about as believable as an alien's promise of free cookies. She stood beneath the brilliant lights of the United Galactic Council Hall, a polished silver amphitheater orbiting a dying blue star, and offered the audience her most disarming smile. Billions of viewers across 12 systems tuned in to watch the historic live broadcast, humanity's first appearance as an official council member. The camera loved her. She looked perfectly calm, her uniform pristine, her posture military straight, her fingers wrapped loosely around a steaming cup of coffee. The cup bore Earth's flag and the faint words caffeine and diplomacy. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice smooth and almost musical. "On behalf of Earth and the United Human Colonies, I thank you for this opportunity to share peace, trade, and the occasional sarcastic remark." A ripple of laughter echoed among the human representatives seated in the back rows. The aliens, however, mostly blinked or clicked their mandibles, unsure if sarcasm was a weapon or a mating ritual. The VA Law Ambassador, a towering insectoid whose chitin shimmered green under the lights, leaned toward his microphone. "Your species' humor is inefficient. Do you not fear being misunderstood?" "Oh, constantly," Alara replied pleasantly. "But that's half the fun." The audience chuckled again, a mixture of amusement and unease. Every word she spoke was designed that way, warm enough to appear harmless, sharp enough to remind them that humans were unpredictable. Behind her smile, her mind ticked through probabilities, political angles, and the subtle shifts of posture from every delegate in the room. Years of training in psychological warfare had taught her one truth: control the rhythm, and you control the narrative. A small, fidgeting aide whispered from behind her podium, "General, we're still live across all major networks." "Good," she murmured, sipping her coffee. "Let's make it memorable." The alien delegations exchanged uneasy glances. The Kithra psychic ambassador, an amphibian with translucent skin, pulsed faintly as he tried to read her thoughts. After a brief pause, he flinched and looked away, muttering to his assistant in telepathic ripples. He had touched the surface of her mind and found only noise, too much emotion, too much patternless chaos. It felt like staring into a storm and realizing the lightning was smiling back. Alara placed her cup down, letting the soft clink echo in the grand hall. "Humanity may be young," she continued, "but we learn quickly. We understand the value of peace. We just prefer it after the shooting stops." Several delegates hissed in disapproval. The scarred Dominion soldiers, hulking reptilian mercenaries with scarred armor, shed guttural laughs. Their leader, General Drock, stood from his seat and flexed his claws. "You speak of peace, little human," he growled, "yet your history drips with blood. You think we fear you because you smile." Alara regarded him with patient amusement. "Oh, not at all. I just find it fascinating how much louder some people speak when they are afraid." Drock's nostrils flared. The VA Law Ambassador clicked his mandibles nervously. Somewhere among the audience, murmurs began to spread. The human general was being watched by billions, and she wasn't backing down. That made her either incredibly brave or terminally foolish. The moderator, a serene orb-shaped being from the neutral Erythian species, floated forward, its voice calm and metallic. "Let us maintain decorum. This is a moment for unity, not hostility." Alara inclined her head. "Of course. I apologize. Old Earth habit. Our diplomacy sometimes sounds like an argument at a family barbecue." The translator drones paused, confused by barbecue, but the phrase somehow lightened the mood. Laughter trickled again, hesitant but genuine. For a moment, the tension dissolved. That was when the Skaw soldiers made their move. It happened so swiftly that most of the audience didn't understand what they were seeing. One of Drock's guards stepped forward, ostensibly to present a ceremonial token of apology. The camera zoomed in as he approached the human general. The guard knelt, extended his arm, and in a blink, a hidden blade unfolded from his wrist, glowing with plasma energy. The blade struck her chest. The entire hall gasped. Sparks flew. The assassin snarled. But Alara didn't fall. Instead, the weapon stopped, halted mid-pierce as if frozen in air. A soft shimmer ran across her uniform, an invisible energy field absorbing the strike. She looked down at the weapon, then at the would-be killer. Her tone was almost bored. "Well," she said, "that's not very diplomatic." A second later, the attacker's armor erupted in a flash of light. A tiny drone, previously unnoticed, detached from the ceiling and discharged a pulse of blue energy. The skull collapsed, unconscious, weapon melted into slag. Security drones swarmed in, forming a protective ring around Alara. The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted. The moderators screamed for order. Cameras spun wildly as the live broadcast continued to transmit across the galaxy. Alara brushed a bit of smoke from her shoulder and straightened her collar. "Apologies for the disturbance," she said calmly, addressing billions of stunned viewers. "I assure you, humanity's safety protocols are extremely proactive." Drock roared, trying to charge forward, but half a dozen council guards restrained him. "You insult my people. This was not authorized." Alara raised a hand. "Oh, General Drock, please. You're embarrassing yourself. Let's not make this worse than it already is." Her voice was sugar wrapped around steel. Reporters shouted questions. Was this a human setup? A ska conspiracy? Was peace already shattered? Alara ignored them all. Her gaze remained fixed on the nearest camera lens. For a fleeting second, her polite mask slipped, revealing something far colder beneath, the stillness of a mind already calculating the next 10 moves. Behind her, a young communications officer whispered, "General, we'll live across every network. Should we cut the feed?" "Not yet," she replied softly. "The galaxy deserves to see this through." The moderator's orb flickered frantically. "General Miles, please, stand down. We must investigate this." She turned to him with that same gentle smile. "Of course. Investigate all you like. Humanity will wait, patiently." Her words carried no explicit threat, but the tone made several alien delegates step back. Even patience, spoken by a human, sounded dangerous. As security forces dragged the unconscious assassin away, Alara stooped to pick up her coffee. Miraculously, it was still warm. She took a slow sip, facing the sea of cameras once again. "Well," she murmured, half to herself and half to the watching galaxy, that escalated faster than a Florida hurricane. The translator paused, then rendered her phrase literally. Cyclonic devastation of surprising immediacy. Billions heard it, and the phrase spread instantly across social networks, trending within minutes. Memes would later call it the understatement of the century. In the hall, the noise began to fade. Delegates whispered in uneasy tones. The moderator struggled to regain control, declaring an emergency recess. Alara stood motionless, composed, and oddly serene amid the turmoil. She understood precisely what had just happened. Not merely an assassination attempt, but an opportunity. The broadcast would ensure that every major power saw humanity as unpredictable, resilient, and not to be trifled with. That was the real victory. The attempt on her life had given her license to act with impunity should the need arise. As the council dissolved into confusion, she caught her reflection in the polished floor. Her smile looked calm, even kind, but her eyes told a different story, a strategist already several steps ahead, playing a game none of them realized had begun. When she finally turned to leave the podium, the cameras followed her until the feed cut to static. The galaxy would spend the night replaying her image, the human general who didn't flinch, didn't shout, didn't bleed. Just smiled, sipped her coffee, and turned a moment of chaos into quiet dominance. And somewhere deep within the networks of Earth's orbital defense systems, unseen commands began to queue, awaiting her signal. Alara Miles stood in the center of the council chamber, as if she had all the time in the world. The chaos still echoed around her, shouted orders, alarms flashing red across the ceiling, alien translators stuttering to keep up with a dozen overlapping languages. The broadcast had not been cut. Every world in the known galaxy still watched her. That was fine. She wanted witnesses. She checked her wrist chrono, tilted her head slightly, and smiled. 5 minutes, she murmured, almost conversationally, as though announcing the start of a polite tea break. The VA lore ambassador, his carapace twitching with outrage, pointed a jagged limb at her. 5 minutes until what? Human. Another act of aggression. Alara lifted her eyes toward him, expression placid. until the situation corrects itself. Her voice held no boast, no threat, just quiet inevitability that unsettled them more than shouting ever could. Her comlink buzzed softly in her ear. The voice of Captain Rydenhale, commander of the human flagship Ragnarok, came through, calm and clipped. General, command confirms uplink secure. Awaiting your signal. Copy, Captain, she replied. Protocol Hellfire. Execute in exactly 5 minutes, synchronized to this broadcast's universal timestamp. There was a pause. Understood. You're still on air. I know, she said, and closed the channel. The Kithra psychic, his translucent form flickering under the stress of the situation, addressed her tentatively. Your mind burns with strange certainty, General Miles. What is it you believe will happen? She regarded him with faint amusement. Belief doesn't enter into it, Ambassador. I simply prepare for outcomes. He recoiled again, muttering something about the human mind being a storm with laughter inside it. The council moderator tried to reassert order. We are suspending this session immediately. General Miles, you are to remain here under protective custody until an inquiry. Protective custody. She almost laughed. I appreciate the concern, but I'm perfectly safe. In fact, I'm probably the safest person in this room. Around her, alien guards shifted uneasily, unsure whether to aim their weapons or lower them. Her calm was contagious in the worst possible way. It made them doubt their fear, then doubt their doubt. Meanwhile, on the massive display behind her, the feed split into quadrants showing news networks across the galaxy. Each commentator shouted in their own language, speculating about what humanity's response would be. Some predicted withdrawal from the council. Others feared retaliation. Few understood that retaliation was already counting down. A young aide from the Erythian staff approached timidly, his metallic body flickering blue with anxiety. General, please. The galaxy watches. Any further escalation could ignite a war. Ilara turned to him kindly. Sweetheart, that ship sailed the moment someone tried to stab me on live holo. Now it's just about who writes the headlines afterward. Her human assistant, Lieutenant Nora Briggs, slipped through the chaos and handed her a datapad. Orders from Earth Command. They want confirmation before authorizing orbital movement. Ilara scanned the document without expression. Confirmation granted. Maintain communications silence afterward. Nora hesitated. You're really going to do it? Ilara took another sip of her coffee, lukewarm now, but still comforting. Of course. You can't let people think it's acceptable to attack you over cookies and peace treaties. In the audience rows, General Drock of the Scar roared with laughter. You think your tiny fleet can challenge the Dominion? You wouldn't last 1 hour. Ilara tilted her head. Oh, you're absolutely right, General. We'd never last 1 hour. She checked her chrono again. Luckily, I only need 5 minutes. The tension snapped like glass underfoot. The alien delegations broke into arguments. The VA Lord demanded evacuation. The Kithra warned of psychic disturbances radiating from the human general's mind. Even the Erythian moderator faltered, his calm voice losing its neutrality. General Miles, I insist you stand down. She turned toward the hovering orb, lowering her voice just enough that the microphones had to lean in. Do you know what I find fascinating about diplomacy, moderator? It's all about timing. 1 wrong second, and the whole illusion shatters. But the right moment, she glanced up at the clock display above the chamber doors. The right moment changes everything. Her comlink buzzed again. For minutes, Captain Hale reported. Ilara smiled faintly. Acknowledged. Proceed as planned. The VA Lore ambassador, clicking furiously, leaned toward her. You cannot mean to threaten the galaxy on live broadcast. Are you trying to provoke a war? Oh, Ambassador, she said sweetly, if I were provoking a war, you'd already be vapor. That statement was delivered so gently that it took a full 5 seconds for the translators to finish rendering it. When the meaning finally reached the crowd, the silence was almost holy. A Skar guard reached for his weapon, only to have his commander slap his claw away. Even Drock, who moments ago was laughing, now seemed unsure whether to run or kneel. Ilara turned her gaze to the main camera lens, the one transmitting directly to billions of alien households. Her expression softened, her tone professional. Citizens of the galaxy, I assure you, humanity seeks peace. But peace cannot exist without respect. Today, respect was briefly misplaced. We're just restoring balance. In the human fleet orbiting nearby, hundreds of ships shifted formation like a single creature inhaling. The energy signatures of their drives spiked, visible even to the Council's external senses. Some delegates noticed, gasping as the readings flashed across their displays. 3 minutes, came Hale's voice. The moderator's orb trembled. You are endangering the entire Council. Ilara raised one brow. Endangering it? No. Demonstrating consequences? Yes. There's a difference. The Kithra psychic attempted again to probe her mind, but this time he staggered backward with a cry, his gills flaring wide. Her thoughts, they are weapons. Layer upon layer. Calm, calculation, memory, emotion. I cannot see the end of them. Ilara regarded him almost pityingly. That's because we humans don't think in straight lines, Ambassador. We think in spirals. The moderator tried one last appeal. General Miles, this broadcast is meant to unify our worlds. End this now before. She interrupted gently. Before you all realize that humans were never the ones who needed unifying. Her words landed like stones dropped in deep water. Her chrono ticked down. 2 minutes. Nora Briggs, pale but steady, stood beside her. Orders confirmed. Fleet locked and waiting. Ilara nodded once. Good. Keep the feed running. They should see it happen. Drock slammed his claws into the table. This is madness. Perhaps, Ilara said, but it's efficient madness. You'll appreciate that, being a warrior race. The seconds passed. Sweat gleamed on alien foreheads, or the equivalent of them. Every heartbeat in the room seemed synced to that invisible countdown. Ilara stood utterly still, her coffee cup resting beside her chrono, her reflection framed in the silver walls of the chamber like a statue carved from patience. 1 minute, Hale whispered. She addressed the chamber one last time, voice calm, eyes bright. For the record, this was preventable. Humanity offered peace. Someone mistook kindness for weakness. I hope this clarifies the difference. Outside the chamber, distant rumbles trembled through the floor, subtle vibrations from the orbiting fleet's energy buildup. Delegates looked up in horror as the screens flickered with data feeds of ships moving into precise geometric patterns. 30 seconds, Hale said. Ilara took her final sip of coffee and set the cup down carefully. Perfect timing, she whispered. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as if the universe itself were drawing breath. The delegates froze, waiting, praying. Then the chrono on her wrist reached 0. Ilara looked directly into the camera and smiled, warm, polite, faintly amused. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted tentacled viewers, she said, you tried to kill me on live broadcast. That wasn't very courteous. So, in the spirit of mutual understanding, she paused, just long enough for tension to become terror. Allow me to respond in kind. The transmission caught her smile just as the first energy surge hit, and then the broadcast feeds began to flicker. Every screen in the galaxy dimmed, but her calm expression lingered, frozen in perfect clarity. The 5 minutes were over. Hell was about to begin. The moment the countdown ended, silence gripped the chamber. Then the world shattered. The lights above flickered once, twice, and the entire station trembled as though the universe had drawn its first startled breath. Ilara Miles didn't flinch. She stood at the center of the storm, hands folded behind her back, watching the delegates panic. Across the galaxy, billions of viewers gasped as the broadcast feed filled with cascading alerts, emergency signals, system disruptions, planetary distress calls. Within seconds, the proud fleets of the Scar Dominion flickered out like candles in a vacuum. A holographic screen materialized beside her, displaying live tactical overlays from the Ragnarok. Red icons vanished one by one. Scar command centers, orbital foundries, and munitions depots all detonated in new perfect synchronization. The pattern was too precise to be revenge. It was art rendered in destruction. Ilara's voice broke through the chaos, calm and clipped. Status report. Captain Hale's voice came through the comm, steady as a heartbeat. Targets 1 through 42 neutralized. Minimal collateral damage. Enemy communication grid compromised. Broadcasting live as ordered. Good work, Captain, she said. Maintain restraint. We're teaching, not conquering. Her words echoed through the chamber, but no one found comfort in them. The VA law ambassador trembled, his chitin plates clacking together. You destroyed half their military. Half. Ilara tilted her head. No, Ambassador. I dismantled their capacity for further bad decisions. Drock's eyes blazed with animal fury. You've declared war. No, she replied softly. I ended one. Another tremor rolled through the station as a final skull weapons platform imploded under its own reactor. The explosion reflected in Ilara's eyes like the birth of a small sun. Her posture remained serene, but her mind was already calculating contingencies, potential retaliations, probable reactions from nearby alliances, the exact percentage of delegates who would side with humanity after tonight. The Kithra psychic, still shaken from his earlier attempt to read her, whispered hoarsely, "How could you have known the locations of their hidden arsenals?" Ilara gave him a faint, knowing smile. You'd be surprised what people reveal when they underestimate you. The galaxy has spent years talking about humanity. We were listening. The chamber's air grew thick, almost heavy, as the implications sank in. Every alien present realized that this woman, the polite general with the warm smile, had orchestrated a galaxy-spanning counterstrike before ever stepping into this hall. The assassination attempt hadn't provoked her plan, it had triggered it. Across the holographic displays, new feeds appeared, images of Scotch ships deactivating mid-combat, their reactors frozen by nanoviruses, their weapons turning to harmless dust. Some ships simply surrendered, venting energy cores in silence. The human fleet didn't pursue or gloat. It waited in formation, silent and disciplined. Ilara tapped the comm again. Confirm no civilian casualties. Hale responded immediately. Confirmed. Clean strikes only. They'll rebuild if they learn how to behave. A soft exhale escaped her lips, the closest she came to relief. Good. Let's keep it that way. The VA law ambassador's voice quavered. Why? Why broadcast this horror? Do you wish the galaxy to fear you? Of course not, Ilara said gently. Fear is temporary. Understanding lasts longer. Her tone was polite, almost nurturing, but each word was a surgical incision cutting through centuries of arrogance. She stepped closer to the central dais, the spot where moments ago the Scar assassin had tried to kill her. Now it looked like a stage built for her victory. Drock strained against his guards, spitting venom across the floor. You think this makes you strong? You think we will kneel? Ilara regarded him the way one might study a misbehaving child. No, General Drock. I don't expect you to kneel. I expect you to think. It's a new experience, I know. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Even in horror, the humans found time for sarcasm. The moderator orb floated forward hesitantly, its voice trembling. General Miles, please, halt this madness before it spreads beyond the Dominion. She turned to the orb, eyes glinting under the harsh white light. Spread? Oh, it already has. The entire broadcast is still live. Every species watching knows exactly what happens when someone mistakes courtesy for weakness. Consider it preventive education. The chamber filled with a low hum as the holographic displays shifted again, this time showing human ships standing down, their weapons retracting, shields dimming. The sudden stillness was almost worse than the chaos. It wasn't rage that terrified the galaxy now. It was control. Humans could unleash annihilation and stop mid-breath, perfectly measured. The Kithra psychic whispered, you could have exterminated them. Yes, Ilara replied. And I didn't. That's what separates predators from monsters. Nora Briggs stood at her side, expression unreadable. She had served under Ilara long enough to recognize the mask, the faintly amused calm hiding exhaustion and something colder, conviction. Nora leaned closer. They'll never forget this. Ilara nodded. That's the point. Through the transparent walls of the chamber, the void outside shimmered with distant light. Fragments of destroyed starships drifted like glowing dust, the silent aftermath of a 5-minute lesson. Somewhere deep within the transmission feed, human analysts were already preparing statements, graphs, and diplomatic talking points. Ilara knew how this would play out. The Council would hold emergency sessions, alliances would fracture, treaties would be rewritten, and humanity would no longer be the newcomer. They would be the standard. Drock's growl broke her thoughts. You've doomed yourself. Every empire will turn on you. She turned her gaze to him, eyes steady as iron. Empires fall. We adapt. That's what we do best. The moderator's voice faltered again, weary and awed. General Miles, what is this? Retribution? Justice? She smiled faintly. Perspective. The chamber went quiet. For the first time, the delegates looked not at a human but at a force of nature wearing a uniform. Her calm wasn't mercy, it was certainty. On every screen, her image dominated the broadcast, the young woman general with a cup of coffee and the eyes of a storm. News anchors whispered her name with reverence and fear. Children on distant worlds would later mimic her gesture, the slight tilt of her head before the words that had changed everything. 5 minutes. Captain Hale's voice cut in again. All systems stable, General. Awaiting further orders. Stand down, she said quietly. We've made our point. The holograms blinked off, leaving the chamber bathed in a dim, sterile glow. Around her, the alien leaders were still frozen, some trembling, some staring, some unable to meet her gaze. Ilara straightened her jacket, adjusted her cuffs, and reached for her cooling coffee. She took one last sip, then set the cup aside with deliberate care. And that, she said softly, is the difference between survival and spectacle. No one answered. The only sound was the soft hum of the station's failing lights and the steady rhythm of her boots as she walked toward the exit. The camera followed her until the broadcast finally cut to black, leaving a galaxy in stunned silence. The lesson had been delivered. Humanity had spoken, and hell had listened. The fires of the Scar Dominion had long since burned out by the time the broadcast ended, leaving only static across the galactic channels and an eerie silence that stretched between worlds. The aftermath was quieter than anyone had imagined, and yet beneath that stillness ran a current of unease, like a collective breath the galaxy refused to exhale. General Ilara Miles sat alone in the council chamber, the once grand room now littered with shattered datapads and the lingering scent of scorched ozone. The alien delegates had been escorted to private quarters for safety, though Ilara knew most of them were hiding, not resting. She sipped what remained of her coffee, cold, metallic, faintly bitter, and stared at her reflection in the polished table. For the first time since the assassination attempt, she allowed herself a moment of stillness. The silence wasn't peace, it was pressure. The kind that precedes a storm or perhaps follows one, depending on perspective. The door hissed open softly behind her. Lieutenant Nora Briggs entered, pale but composed, carrying a datapad stacked with transmissions. Messages from half the galaxy, Nora said. Mostly condemnations. A few requests for negotiation. Ilara didn't look up. How many for surrender? 7. As of 5 minutes ago, Nora replied. The VA low among them. Ilara gave a quiet hum of acknowledgement. Predictable. They calculate faster than they think. Nora hesitated by the table. Are we sure this is what we wanted? Every news network is calling it the day of coffee and fire. The memes alone. Ilara finally glanced up, one eyebrow raised. They're making memes already. Yes. There's one of you holding the coffee mug with the caption 5 minutes to brew. It's trending on 6 networks. A faint smile touched her lips. Good. Fear fades fast. Ridicule endures, and it keeps them talking. Nora frowned. With respect, I'm not sure the rest of the galaxy sees it as humor. They don't have to, Ilara said softly. They just have to remember. A chime interrupted them. The council moderator's orb drifting in, its usually steady glow dimmed to a nervous pulse. General Miles, the Provisional Emergency Council requests your presence in the main chamber. They wish to discuss terms of ceasefire. Ceasefire. Ilara rose from her seat with measured grace. That implies someone is still firing. The orb fluttered uncertainly. It's a formality, General. They wish to avoid further demonstrations. Understandable, she murmured, brushing a wrinkle from her jacket. Let's not keep them waiting. The walk to the main chamber felt longer than before. The corridors were lined with alien guards who now lowered their heads as she passed. Once, they had watched her with suspicion. Now they watched her the way prey observes the movement of a patient predator. Ilara didn't revel in it. She simply noted it, catalogued it, another variable in a calculation that had yet to conclude. When she entered, the remaining council members stood, or floated, around the circular table. The VA lore ambassador's chitin gleamed dully, his arrogance stripped bare. The Kithra psychic kept his translucent gaze fixed on the floor, afraid to touch her thoughts again. Even the moderator's orb flickered like a candle on its last spark. Ilara took her seat. Let's begin. The VA law spoke first, his voice brittle. General Miles, humanity has violated countless interstellar accords. The destruction of SCOM military assets, while effective, was excessive. Excessive. Ilara tilted her head. They attempted to assassinate a representative on a peace broadcast. A representative, I should add, who was drinking coffee at the time. Frankly, you should be grateful we're not worse morning people. The ambassador's mandibles twitched in discomfort. Be that as it may, such retaliation destabilizes galactic order. Galactic order, she repeated, tasting the words like spoiled wine. Is that what you call a council where assassination is just another debate tactic? The moderator tried to interject, but Ilara's voice cut through the chamber with surgical precision. Humanity doesn't owe you an apology. We offered peace. You responded with hostility. Now, you'll respond with cooperation. The room went very still. She folded her hands on the table. Here are our terms. Immediate disarmament of the Ska Dominion's remaining fleets. Transfer of command protocols to a neutral oversight body, chaired by human officers. In return, we offer reconstruction aid, trade access, and protection against piracy. The VA lore ambassador sputtered. Protection? You mean control? Ilara smiled faintly. Control is just protection you can rely on. The Kithra psychic stirred weakly. You planned all of this. From the beginning. Her gaze softened, but her words remained steel. We planned for the worst. The galaxy provided it. Nora watched in silence, realizing this was not victory but choreography. Every word, every glance was part of Ilara's larger design, to redefine humanity's image not as the weakest link, but as the pivot around which the rest of the galaxy would now revolve. After hours of tense discussion, the Council signed the Provisional Accords. When the last digital seal flickered into place, Ilara stood. Congratulations, she said lightly. You've just made history. Again. The VA Law grumbled. You humans don't negotiate. You maneuver. She inclined her head politely. We multitask. When she left the chamber, the corridor was empty except for Nora. That went better than expected, Nora said. Ilara didn't answer immediately. Her gaze was fixed on the panoramic window overlooking the void. The remnants of the Ska armadas drifted like ghost lights, their hulks catching the glow of distant stars. It was beautiful in a tragic way, the kind of beauty born only from ruin. Nora approached cautiously. Was it worth it? Ilara exhaled, the faintest tremor in her voice. Ask me in a century. They walked together toward the shuttle bay. On the way, maintenance drones hummed softly, cleaning debris. The galaxy outside seemed impossibly large again, restored to scale after the illusion of dominance. Before boarding, Ilara paused and looked back at the council hall one last time. Do you think they'll hate us for this? Nora asked quietly. Oh, definitely, Ilara said with a small smile. But hate is useful. It means they'll think twice before they act. Fear fades. Respect lingers. The shuttle doors closed behind them. Inside, the hum of engines filled the quiet. Ilara sank into her seat, her body finally feeling the weight of sleepless days. Transmit the final statement to all networks, she ordered. Keep it brief. Nora nodded and began typing. Message content. Ilara closed her eyes for a moment. Tell them humanity remains committed to peace. We just expect better, aim next time. Nora snorted softly, despite herself. That'll trend again. Good, Ilara said, a hint of a laugh in her tone. We're good at trending. The shuttle lifted from the platform, gliding into the starlit void. Below them, the council station gleamed like a scar that refused to close. The comm crackled with Hale's voice from the Ragnarok. All fleets returning to standby orbit. The galaxy's gone silent. Ilara opened her eyes, watching the stars stretch across the viewport. Silence is good, she said. It means they are listening. As the ship slipped into faster-than-light travel, the reflection of Earth's flag shimmered faintly on her visor. She lifted her cup, now refilled by the shuttle's automatic dispenser, and took a long sip. The bitterness grounded her. Somewhere out there, entire civilizations were rewriting the doctrines because of one human smile and a 5-minute countdown. Ilara set the cup down gently. We offered peace, she whispered to herself. And they answered with fear. Maybe that's the closest this galaxy can get to understanding us. The stars blurred into streaks of light as the shuttle vanished into hyperspace, carrying with it the quiet weight of a lesson the universe would not soon forget. Humanity had smiled, struck, and then smiled again, proof that thunder doesn't always need to roar to be remembered.